Morning. Well, here we are. It's almost Av. It's almost the new month in the midst of the summer later this week. And it's so good to be back with you on Boker Tov to share the beginning of our morning together. It's wonderful to see everyone filing in as we get ready to share our morning together, to reflect just a bit. Yes, what a good time it is to be here together. Boker Tov, and welcome to this beautiful day. It is gloriously sunny outside during this special summer day, and I'm excited to be back with you here again today to start our moment, to start our day together. Yishar Koach. All strength and appreciation to Rabbi Jordan Shaner for his leadership in the last couple of weeks. And I'm excited to be back again for us to start our days to begin a moment like this together. And so let's start, as we do each and every day, with a sense of gratitude for the privilege of waking up in the morning and being alert and aware and having the opportunity, even when coughing, to see that everything works today. Please join with me in the English of Asher Yetzel. Blessed eternal God, creator of the universe, you have fashioned our bodies with wisdom, creating within us a finely balanced network. To stand before you in prayer is itself a fragile miracle. Eternal God, we praise you as the healer of body and spirit. And let's join together showing gratitude for our eternal soul as well. The soul that you have given me, O God, is a pure one. You have created and formed it, breathed it into me, and within me you sustain it. So long as my soul is within me, I will give thanks to you, eternal my God and God of my ancestors, source of all creation, sovereign of all souls. We praise you, eternal God. In his hand is the power of all life and the spirit of all flesh. Well, to the physical and the spiritual, we add the intellectual, the cognitive. But more than that, as we'll discuss today, the study of Torah is not in any way just an intellectual or cognitive activity, but is a holistic moment that brings together everything that we are. Let's join together in the Hebrew blessing for Talmud Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Va'arevna Adonai Eloheinu et divrei Toratcha b'finu ובפי עמך בית ישראל, נהיה אנחנו וצאצאינו, וצאצאי עמך בית ישראל, כולנו יודעי שמך, ולומדי תורתך לשמה. ברוך אתה אדוני, המלמד תורה לעמו ישראל. As our discussion of our Torah portion this morning, we'll focus a bit on the nature of giving and receiving and sharing Torah together. Let's also join in the English of our Torah blessing today. Blessed eternal God, creator of the universe, you sanctify our lives with mitzvot and command us to engage in Torah study. Eternal our God, may your words of Torah be sweet to us. Let every generation, young and old, the whole family of Israel, come to know you through the study of Torah for its own sake. Eternal God, we praise you as the teacher of Torah to the people of Israel. Well, having said this blessing, let's immediately turn to studying Torah from this text that describes for us some of those key sacred obligations and opportunities that make each of our days filled with meaning. Elu dvarim she'en lahem shiur. These are the obligations whose value cannot be measured. They nourish us in this world and help us to create the world to come. Kibud av va'em, to honor fathers and mothers. Umilut chasadim, to perform acts of love and kindness. Ashkamat beit midrash shacharit ve'arvit, to attend the house of study morning and evening. Bachnasat ochim, to welcome the stranger. Ubikur cholim, to visit the sick. Bahachnasat kala, to provide for brides and grooms. Levayat amet, to keep faith with the dead. Viyun tfilah, to pray with sincerity. Vava'at shalom ben adam lachavero, to make peace when there is strife. the Talmud Torah keneged kulam. And the study of Torah is equal to them all. Well, as we continue to begin our morning and prepare to study Torah, we allow the words of Torah to guide us, these words that come not from this week's parasha, not from this week's Torah portion, but from next week's, at least the initial paragraph of the Shema, as you can see. And so joining in these words, they're not merely a content-based affirmation. We find within ourselves that sense of linkage. These words have echoed in the mouths and the lives of our people for thousands of years. And so we continue that and we project that love of God and one another into our lives and into our future as we join together in Shema. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. Ve'avta et Adonai Elohecha, Bechol Levavecha, Ubechol Nafshecha, Ubechol Meudecha. Vayu advarim ha'ele, asher anochi metzavcha hayom al levavecha, v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam, v'shivtecha bevetecha, uv'lechtecha v'derech, uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha, uv'kshartam le'ot al yadecha, vayu letotafot ben enecha, uv'chtavtam al mezuzot betecha uv'isharecha. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe lemor, daber el bnei Yisrael ve'emalta alehem, ועשו להם ציצית על כנפי בגדיהם לדורותם, ונתנו על ציצית הכנף פתיל תכלת, והיה לכם לציצית, וראיתם אותו, וזכרתם את כל מצוות אדוני ועשיתם אותם, ולא תטורו אחרי לבבכם ואחרי עיניכם, אשר אתם זונים אחריהם, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם אלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. אדוני אלוהיכם emet. Well, we now have the opportunity, it being a Monday, to reflect just a bit on the Torah portion of this week. And as I already mentioned, reflecting on the Torah portion for this week is really something that is about the opportunity to study Torah. How can we tell that? Usually Torah is not like that, but we are entering a new world of Torah, as this week is Parashat Dvarim, is the parasha called Dvarim, which is the first Torah portion in the book of Deuteronomy. Now, Deuteronomy is a partially correct name for this book, Deuteronomos, that means second law, which is close. Torah is not a book of law, but a book of teaching. That's what the word Torah means. It means teaching. And so the Torah is there as our companion, as our guide, not merely as some kind of dry book of law, even though there is no lack of law and lore within it. And this morning, that word Deuteronomy does in fact echo words that we find in the parasha Mishneh Torah, which Maimonides then used as the name for his first law code. But Mishneh Torah literally means a second teaching. And that is, in fact, the nature of this book. In fact, what I want to start with today is very much is the nature of the book of Deuteronomy, which of course will be with us now until Simchat Torah in the fall, and we'll be moving forward together. But what kind of book is it? You may recall that when Moshe Rabbeinu was introduced to us in the book of Exodus, that when Moses, our teacher and our leader and our exemplar, was introduced, he said, as many of the prophets do, I'm not a man of words. He called himself heavy of speech. There are many different interpretations of that. But early on, he was someone who described himself that way. Now, what is the book of Deuteronomy? It is really the opposite of that moment, a crowning achievement, not in his life, but in the relationship between Moses and the people of Israel, because one of the key things we learn, we're going to look at it now in just a moment, is that the study of Torah is not about the cognitive or intellectual transfer of ideas or perspectives in one direction, but is, wow, it's all about relationship. It's about a connection, about a give and take, which is one of the reasons why the act of study in Jewish tradition is not called study, but learning. Because no matter how much background or experience a teacher, a learner has, in every Torah relationship, that is everything that Talmud Torah, that Torah study is supposed to be, each person is learning and growing. There is always someone, something we can learn from each other, and usually many things, especially when we bring our different perspectives to moments in our world, moments in our lives, as well as moments in our tradition. So what is that? How does Torah bring that about this week? Well, when we look at the beginning of the book of Deuteronomy, what we find is the retelling of a number of core stories in a speech given by Moses that begins this week. But very important to that, to understand what's really going on here, is the date. Often, not often, but a number of times in Torah, dates are given when a certain event occurred. And today, when the book of Deuteronomy begins, when we read from it today, for the first time during the week, what we find is it says in the 40th year, in the 11th month, on the first day. But that's when Moses began to speak to the people, and he recalls a number of stories in which he participated, and he recalls them differently than they were taught earlier on in Torah. Now, why is that significant? Remember, Moses lived, as is the traditional number, for 120 years, but not about 120 years, but, says tradition, exactly 120 years. And that means that the day Moses was born and the day Moses died were the same day, according to tradition, the 7th day of the month of Adar. And this book began in the 120th year of Moses' life on the first day of the month of Shvat, 36, if you count them, 37 days before the end of Moses' life. And Moses, so says tradition, was different from us in a number of ways, but one of those significant ways was he was the one person who knew how long his life would be. That God told him, as you'll see as the book evolves, when the end was coming. And so what we really have in this book that begins today is Moses having the opportunity to share a reflection on his life, on what it means, on what it is he and the people of Israel have shared, on his reflections, his learnings, and his hopes and dreams for the generations that will come after him. Wow, what would it be like? I don't really want to know when that day will come, and yet to live in such a connected way that we're focused on saying each day, here are my lessons. Here's what I'm working on and learning. Here's what I have to offer to others. Moses models this. And it's tempting when we look at this particular Torah portion to be cynical about that, because, for instance, in the story of the spies that comes from Parashat Shalach Lecha, in the book of Numbers, in the book of Bamidbar that we studied together, Moses has a different role in the way it's told in the book of Numbers than he does in the way he retells the story. And we're tempted to say, oh, well, what is Moses doing? He's doing what so many of us do. He's taking the history of his life and he's recasting it in a role that's more friendly to himself. Cynically, that may be there as a teaching, because something that we should be aware that we're always tempted to do. But I think the lesson here in two ways is deeper. First of all, it's deeper because it says to us, what matters and what needs to drive our lives is not the dry word of history, but the powerful flow of narrative. To say, what is a story that I want to live? And how can I share that story, those lessons, those directions with the people around me? That how is it that I can acknowledge, on the one hand, that none of us is some objective journalist in our own lives, nor should we be. But rather we're always looking for lessons and to see what role we did play, could improve on, can celebrate all of those things. So yes, Moses does retell and recast the events in a different light, but he does so in a normal, beautiful, human way. And according to the Sfat Emet, in its comment on this, it also shows that what it says, this Hasidic commentary, it says, well, because Moses was finally ready to share Torah with the people in a whole and complete way. Why? Because he'd spent 40 years developing a relationship with them. That Torah study takes place within a caring, supportive, future-oriented, love-filled environment. That's in fact what the essence of Torah study is. It's the opportunity for us to open our minds and our hearts and to learn and live together. And in order to do that, if we look at Torah study as some kind of cognitive exercise, we miss out on how much Torah can be. This teaching from Pirkei Avot, from the first chapter of the Ethics of Our Ancestors, of this very special section of the Mishnah, talks about this, and I want to share a brief teaching of it, the way Rabbi Perlson, alav shalom, our founding rabbi, used to teach it. Here we find ourselves in chapter 1, and this paragraph before you says, Yoshua ben Parachia and Nitaya al-Beli received the tradition. They received Torah from the two that came before them. Yoshua ben Parachia used to say, Aseh lecha rav, appoint for yourself a teacher. Get yourself a rav, someone who can be an exemplar, someone who you will open you up to learning. And then it says, and acquire for yourself a companion. But Rabbi Perlson would always say, when you find yourself in the heart of a rav, a guide, a teacher, then you've made for yourself a friend, a very special kind of a friend. The bond, Torah study and learning and seeking to grow in our lives and in our perspectives, wow, is such a bond that we can share with another person. And each time we do, we create a different kind of friendship that enriches our lives. And even as we do that, then we take this last teaching so significantly, and judge all individuals to give everyone the benefit of the doubt. That in order to develop such a relationship and really learn together, we have to be open and seeking to grow rather than seeking to judge. The beginning of the book of Deuteronomy does just that. I've been tempted historically to judge Moshe Rabbeinu, which is a terrible thing, an unnecessary thing to do in this case. Although it's not about him, it's about each of us realizing that sometimes we can use retelling stories as justification instead of opening ourselves up. And I hope as we enter this period that leads toward Tisha B'Av and continues after that all the way up to the new year and the high holidays, I hope this can be an amazing time of openness for us, a time of learning, and a time where we find within ourselves the kind of strength we need to heal and grow and to support others. And in that spirit, I want to continue with our prayer for refuah, for healing, holding in our hearts all those who are ill or unwell or isolated and who need our strength and support and God's strength and support. And likewise, keeping in mind all those who continue to step forward for all of us to help manage this public health crisis and to create a life that is both feels worthy and meaningful and safe and secure as possible all at the same time. So with all of them in mind, and with you holding in your hearts all those who may need healing, I'm thinking of so many in our Temple Sinai community who we know are in need of hope and healing as I join in these words of refuah. Nishaberach Avotenu Abraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov ve'imotenu Sarah Rivka Leah v'Rachel v'yiraped kol makotenu yiratzon milfenecha Eloheinu lachal imam ulrapotam yishlach lanu mehera refuah shlema v'teret shalom v'nomar Amen. May the one who blessed our ancestors bless and heal all who suffer. May it be the divine will to provide healing and strength. Reveal to us the holiness of life, the wholeness of shalom, and together we say, Amen. And so having taken a bit of a moment for us to connect and likewise to reflect, it is now time for us to remember, for us to acknowledge those who've been with us and who enriched our lives, and now we've been forced in a physical way to say goodbye to. Those who died in recent days and weeks, at this season in years past, or those whom we've taken into our hearts with our own. In the period of Shloshim, the past 30 days, we extend our condolences to the families of David Garber, Zena Werb, Robert Filler, Alan Fridson, Rose Rich, Benji Fruitman, Judy Gabai. And on this day, the 28th day of the summer month of Tammuz, on July the 20th, 2020, we extend our condolences and we support them remembering of these special individuals on their anniversary of their deaths. We remember Murray Atkin, Arthur Cohen, Frida Dubiner, Stanley Harold Eisen, Sarah Sally Feinberg, Siegfried Gerstel, Sam Goodman, Saul Greenwald, Marvin Kellner, Stephen Siegel, Bernard Whiteman. Zichronam Livracha. May their memories be an enduring blessing as we turn to words sanctified by memory, words glorified by hope in the Kaddish Yatom. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemer haba, be'alma divrach yiruteh v'yamlich malchuteh, v'chayechon v'yomechon, v'chaye dechol beit Yisrael, v'agala v'bizman kari v'imru Amen. Yehe shemer haba mevarach le'alam u'lalmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemed kudsha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, lameran ve'alma v'imru Amen. Yehe shlama rabba min shmaya v'chayim, alenu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom b'mormav, hu yaseh shalom, alenu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and bring comfort and strength to all who remember. And together we say, Amen. Oh, it's wonderful to be back with you again here on Boker Tov in the morning. And I hope that today can be a day of reflection and a day of growth and learning for each and every one of us. Have a marvelous day. Boker Tov.